Today's exercise is about asking, what do you love about today? I call this the Groundhog Day exercise. Hello, Rita. So, if you are in a situation where you really are struggling to find the joy, okay, and you'll notice this because you'll hear language like, when things get calmer, when X finishes, I will do whatever it is. That means there's resistance to the moment that you're in and you're waiting for something external to happen before you do something else. Now, this might be very heavy, okay? It might be that you're currently caring for somebody. It might be that there is a situation at work, there is harassment, there is bullying, there is, something that you don't feel you have control over because you don't, okay? What we do have is the choice to have compassion for ourselves and to prioritize how we look after ourselves as we go through this. So rather than investing energy on imagining that something magical is going to happen to us, what I want you to do instead is ask yourself, if I have to live today again and again and again, if this is as good as it gets, right? Let's say that I will always be caring for someone. Or let's say that this situation, I can't control it. I don't know how long it will continue, right? It might be 6 months, it might be a few weeks, it might be a year, it might be a couple of years. The example that I used was when Rita was sick. When Rita was sick, my dog, it was 6 months of just having to take day by day. I couldn't leave her on her own for more than a few minutes, right? Which meant carrying her up and down the stairs. She is 26 kilograms. I lived in a four-story house that was not designed for carrying people, for babies, for anything, for carrying heavy dogs. A four-story, 300-year-old house, right? So the steps were like that. And I felt that I was getting older, right? I was 36 years old. I'd split up with my partner at 35. And I was just starting to really be aware of the conversation around, when does our expiry date happen in terms of having children? And I really felt the pressure of, oh my God, like I need to decide if I want kids and I should be dating right now. And I can't. Right. So there were all these external pressures. We were losing my granddad. He was at the end of his Parkinson's battle. In fact, no, we lost him just before Rita got sick. These are connected. So there were all these things. I was living in a rural village, 800 people in Spain. I felt pressure to learn the language. I felt pressure to do, to do, to do, to do. Okay. And an inability to do any of those things. So what I decided to do was to say, okay, if this is it for the rest of my life, can it be enough? Where will I create joy in each moment? What will I anchor to? And I decided to ask, so that was the first step. Okay. And I think for me, it was about having my coffee, right? It was about having my coffee. I had an amazing view, and I decided that I would connect with having my coffee at that moment and looking at the view and just noticing that view and noticing that if I look at this view for the rest of my life, I will create happiness, right? I will find joy at least once a day. And then from that place, I then ask the question, what is the lesson here? What is the skill that I'm building? So you can start with the prompt of, this is the moment where I learned how to, right? So time travel forward. Imagine that you have created what it is that you want, and we'll look at this a little more tomorrow, okay? But just ask yourself if this is the moment that you're learning to do something, and that learning is to experience joy in difficulty. How will you turn up the dial each day on that joy? So for me, it was okay, how can I make my coffee really amazing? Well, I can't go to the shop, but I can order something. So I'm going to get a really beautiful cup. I'm going to create a little ritual when I make my coffee. I'm going to put some cream in it. I'm going to have it with a croissant. I'm going to take a few breaths before I have it. I'm going to smell it, right? And really ask yourself, literally, if I'm living this day again and again for the rest of my life, how will I turn up the joy dial, 1% each day with just this? And let that be enough. Because if you let that be enough, I promise you, you will then start to find these moments when you take your shower, when you're preparing your lunch, throughout the day. And that is the energy that you're going to build momentum from. And that is how you're going to create a future that feels as joyful, as present, as connected as these little moments. You are building that skill so that it is part of you. Because if you have the business that you dream of, the you know, the three kids if you want kids, whilst also running sanctuary and chateau and traveling and having a relationship where you have chemistry even after 50 years or 30 years or 20 years. Maybe you're doing this at 70, okay? However that is, that capacity for that joy, you are building it right now. And that is going to take you through the difficult moments where you realize that, actually, the chateau is collapsing because the foundations weren't put into place. Am I going to lose it or am I going to tap into my joy and find the solution? Okay, see you tomorrow.